Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that no one around you asks questions anymore. Not about the news, not about what they're told, not even about what they believe. It's not that they're stupid, not in the traditional sense. They can use smartphones, quote headlines, argue in comment sections. But when it comes to thinking, really thinking, they've gone silent, numb, uninterested. What if I told you this isn't science fiction? We're living in a world that doesn't just fail to reward thinking, it punishes it. It punishes reflection with ridicule. It punishes doubt with cancellation. It punishes curiosity with the algorithmic hammer of outrage and distraction. The world we're in right now, this loud, fast, overstimulated system, doesn't want you to think. It wants you to react, to scroll, to obey. And slowly, without realizing it, most people have done exactly that. They've surrendered the most powerful tool a human being possesses, their ability to pause, to reflect, and to ask, wait, is this really true? Have you felt it too? That sense that the world's gotten dumber, louder, that you're surrounded by noise but starving for sense? You're not imagining it. You're not crazy, and you're not alone. Because this isn't just a decline in IQ. This is a crisis of will, a disappearance of one of the rarest, most vital acts left in a society drowning in speed, the act of thinking. There's a name for what's happening to us. It's not just ignorance. It's not just distraction. It's what some philosophers now call collective stupidity. Not because people are inherently dumb, but because we are being systematically trained to not think. We are being conditioned to adopt shallow beliefs, to echo popular narratives, and to abandon our intellectual independence without even noticing. It's happening in our schools. It's happening in our media. It's happening on every glowing screen in our hands. And worst of all, it's working. Noam Chomsky warned us about this decades ago. In his work on propaganda, he introduced the concept of manufacturing consent, a process by which people are trained to agree with power structures, not through violence, but through repetition, through design, through the illusion of choice. He wrote that when people are taught to consume without questioning, to agree without understanding, they become easy to manage and even easier to manipulate. Sound familiar? Because today, the systems we trust to educate us, inform us, entertain us, they don't cultivate thinkers. They cultivate followers. Our education system. John Taylor Gatto, an award-winning teacher, revealed the ugly truth. Schools weren't built to raise minds. They were built to raise workers. Obedient, predictable, silent. From a young age, children are rewarded for memorizing, not for thinking. They're graded on conformity, not creativity. They're trained to follow instructions, not to challenge assumptions. And once we enter the adult world, the pattern only deepens. At work, questioning the status quo risks your job. Online, it risks your reputation. In social groups, it risks your belonging. So we play it safe. We repeat mantras. We nod along. And over time, we forget that thinking was ever an option at all. Carl Sagan once said, "We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology." He wasn't talking about academic gaps. He was talking about a world that relies on complexity, but discourages understanding. That disconnect? It's growing. Daniel Levitin, a neuroscientist, revealed that today's average person consumes 5 times more information per day than just a few decades ago. 5 times more. Think about that. Notifications, News alerts, ads, posts, podcasts, emails, comments, videos. We are drowning in information, but starving for meaning. And when your brain is overwhelmed like this, it does what any brain would do. It shortcuts. It stops analyzing and starts reacting. It stops thinking and starts copying. Instead of evaluating truth, we look to what others believe. Instead of discerning facts, we follow trends. Instead of logic, we default to social proof. If enough people like it, share it, agree with it, it must be true, right? But that's not reason. That's not thought. That's conditioning. And it's dangerously effective. Have you noticed how often we skim now? Not read, skim. We scroll past headlines. We watch 10-second clips. We jump between tabs, between apps, between platforms, and we call it consuming content. But what are we really consuming? According to Marianne Wolf, a leading neuroscientist, our brains are literally being rewired by digital media. We've lost the ability to sustain attention. We struggle to read deeply. We crave speed over substance. But here's the thing. Critical thinking requires sustained attention. You cannot reflect if your mind is fractured. You cannot analyze if your focus is gone. You cannot understand if you're too busy reacting. This is not a coincidence. It's not an accident. It's the result of systems designed to make you numb, designed to keep you compliant, designed to turn your brain from a tool of inquiry into a tool of obedience. So ask yourself, when was the last time you read an entire article without checking your phone? When was the last time you heard something provocative and paused to reflect instead of reacting? When was the last time you asked, is this true? Instead of, do people agree with this? We are not witnessing a mere cultural trend. We are watching the slow, deliberate erosion of the thing that once made us human, the ability to think for ourselves. Let's be clear. Most people aren't stupid. They're tired. Tired of arguing. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of thinking too hard when it's easier and safer to just agree, scroll, react, repeat. But behind this exhaustion is something deeper, something more dangerous, a kind of mental surrender. You see, our brains weren't built for the world we live in now. They evolved to survive danger, not to process a million opinions a day. And when overwhelmed, the brain takes shortcuts, what psychologists call heuristics. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. In his groundbreaking book, Thinking, Fast and Slow, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman explains that we all operate with two systems. System 1 is fast, emotional, automatic. It makes snap judgments. It's great for crossing the street or recognizing a friend's face. System 2 is slow, deliberate, effortful. It's where real thinking happens. It weighs evidence. It questions assumptions. It solves problems. But here's the problem. System 2 is lazy. It doesn't activate unless we force it to. And in today's always-on world, most people live in System 1, permanently. We scroll fast, we react fast, we form opinions fast, and the faster we go, the less we think. We start relying on mental shortcuts that feel right, but are often wrong. Like confirmation bias, our brain's tendency to seek out information that agrees with what we already believe. Ever catch yourself reading articles that reinforce your opinion? Ignoring sources that challenge you? Or arguing harder when someone brings up evidence that contradicts you? That's not you thinking. That's your brain protecting your identity. Because thinking isn't just uncomfortable, it's threatening. Real thought risks something. It risks our sense of certainty. It risks our status. It risks the fragile ego we've built around being right. And so, instead of thinking, We defend. We cling. We double down on the familiar. This is why outrage spreads so quickly. This is why misinformation goes viral. This is why echo chambers form and thrive. Because it's not about truth anymore. It's about comfort. We don't seek clarity. We seek validation. We don't ask, is this accurate? We ask, do my people agree with this? This is social proof in action. The psychological shortcut where we assume something must be true if others seem to believe it. You've felt it. You've seen a post with 100,000 likes and thought, well, it must be right. You've watched friends share headlines without reading the article. You've done it yourself. We all have. Because thinking is hard. And in today's culture, it's not just hard. It's discouraged. Who has time to sit with complexity when speed is everything? Who wants to say, I don't know, when confidence wins every argument? Online, hesitation looks like weakness. Certainty is king. So we stop reflecting, and we start performing. We become avatars. We signal our tribe. We share the approved slogans. We avoid the dangerous questions. Because asking, what if I'm wrong, might cost us likes, might cost us friends, might cost us identity. And so we trade thought for loyalty, inquiry for repetition, depth for reaction. The algorithms love it. The outrage industry profits from it. And we numb ourselves to the consequences. Have you ever caught yourself scrolling for an hour and not remembering a thing? Have you ever shared something not because it was true, but because it felt true? Have you ever avoided saying something real because you knew the backlash would be brutal? That's mental surrender. Not dramatic, not explosive, but quiet, creeping, invisible, the slow erosion of your inner voice, the dulling of your discernment. The moment you stop asking and just accept. And the terrifying part? It doesn't feel like giving up. It feels like surviving. It feels like belonging. But in reality, you're being pulled gently, subtly, into a form of collective stupidity. Not because you lack intelligence, but because the systems around you, social, digital, cultural, are designed to bypass your reason. They don't want you to think. They want you to agree. They want you to react. They want you to stay inside the lines and never ask who drew them. Because once you start asking those questions, everything changes. So here's a question no one asks anymore. But we must. Do you have the courage to be wrong? Can you sit with discomfort long enough to find the truth beneath it? Can you let go of the safety of certainty and step into the storm of real thought? Because it's there, in that storm, that freedom begins. Not the freedom to say whatever you want, but the freedom to know why you say it. The freedom to examine your beliefs, not just express them. The freedom to think even when it hurts. And make no mistake, thinking will hurt, but it will also heal. It will also awaken. It will also set you apart in a world addicted to noise. So what happens when we stop thinking? What's the price we pay? Not in theory, but in real human terms. We lose something we rarely notice until it's gone. Our freedom. Not the flag-waving, anthem-singing kind of freedom, but the deep, inner kind. The freedom to choose your beliefs, to shape your worldview, to understand why you are the way you are. Because when you stop thinking, you don't just lose access to ideas, you lose access to yourself. And suddenly, your identity doesn't come from within. It comes from your group, your algorithm, your feed, your tribe. You start confusing your beliefs with your worth. You stop saying, I believe this, and start saying, I am this. You're no longer a person who holds an idea. You become the idea. And the moment someone questions it, it feels like they're questioning you. That's why conversations today feel like war. That's why everything feels so personal. Because we've built our identities on borrowed truths, and deep down, we know it. When someone disagrees with you, do you feel attacked? When a new fact challenges your view, do you lean in or shut down? When you're asked to explain why you believe something, can you? If not, that's not clarity. That's conditioning. And the people who designed these systems, they know this. So ask yourself, who benefits when you stop thinking? Who profits when you're too tired to ask questions? Who gains when you scroll instead of study? Who wins when you become predictable, programmable, pliable? It's not you. Because the cost of not thinking is more than intellectual. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It's existential. You lose your self-respect. Deep down, we all want to feel like we understand the world. That we're not just parroting slogans, wearing labels, copying opinions. We want to feel grounded. Like what we believe actually belongs to us. But if you've never questioned it, if you've never challenged it, if you've never risked being wrong, can you really say it's yours? Do you have the courage to be wrong? To hold up your own ideas to the light and say, maybe I need to rethink this. Because the longer you hold on to something without examining it, the more it owns you. And suddenly, you're not free. You're a puppet. Your strings pulled by people you'll never meet, for reasons you'll never see. They don't need to censor you if you've already silenced yourself. They don't need to control your thoughts if you've already given up thinking altogether. And that's the danger. It doesn't feel like oppression. It feels like comfort. It feels like ease, like scrolling, like fitting in. And slowly, quietly, your mind, once alive, curious, full of questions, becomes passive, safe, but empty. You are not your political party. You are not your ideology. You are not the opinions you copied to survive. You are a human being with the power to evolve, to unlearn, to awaken. But only if you choose to. Only if you reclaim the one thing no system, no algorithm, no movement can take from you. Unless you hand it over, your ability to think, not just consume, not just argue, not just perform, but to think deeply, bravely, honestly. And that choice, it's yours, right now. Now you know, not just what's happening, but why it's happening. This wasn't an accident. It's a system, a machine that runs on your attention, your conformity, and your silence. And for too long, we've been handing those things over without a second thought. But here's the truth no one will say out loud. You don't change the world by shouting louder. You change it by thinking deeper. And in a culture that worships speed, spectacle, and certainty, the most radical act you can take is to think. Yes, to think. To ask better questions. To challenge easy answers. To step away from the algorithm and into your own mind. That is rebellion. And it doesn't begin with a protest or a post. It begins in silence, in stillness. In the quiet moment when you pause before reacting and ask, what's really going on here? Every time you reflect instead of repeat, you resist. Every time you say, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out, you reclaim your power. Because this is not just about intelligence. It's about courage. The courage to question what you've always believed. The courage to admit when you're wrong. The courage to unlearn the comforts that keep you numb. Reclaiming your mind is not a trend. It is a moral responsibility, a spiritual one. Because critical thinking, real thinking, is more than a skill. It's an act of truth over comfort, freedom over approval, growth over identity. And it's not easy. You'll be misunderstood, you'll be criticized. You might even lose people who only like the version of you that stayed quiet. But what you'll gain? Clarity, integrity, self-respect. You'll begin to see the strings. You'll feel the shift. From being a product of your environment to becoming the architect of your own mind. And that changes everything. So how do you begin? Start small, but start deliberately. Practice metacognition. Think about your thinking. Ask, what's influencing my opinion right now? Am I reacting or am I reflecting? What am I afraid to question and why? Rebuild your attention span. Read slowly, deeply, entire books, not just headlines. Seek out views that challenge you, not to argue, but to understand. Hold two opposing ideas and sit with the tension. That's called dialectical thinking, and it's how real wisdom is born. Make silence part of your daily practice. Because as Jiddu Krishnamurti once said, to understand the immeasurable, the mind must be extraordinarily quiet. In that stillness, you'll hear something rare. Your own voice, not the voice you copied to fit in, not the slogans you inherited, not the noise from your feed, but your voice, the one that dares to question, the one that remembers how to think, the one that says, there's more to this. That voice is still there. And right now, it's asking you, will you wake up? Because here's what no one tells you. One person who thinks clearly is more dangerous than 1,000 who don't. You don't need permission to start. You don't need credentials. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to care enough to slow down and see. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It doesn't need more content. It doesn't need more people screaming to be heard. It needs you, awake, grounded, thinking. You are the light in the dark room. You are the voice of calm in the storm of outrage. You are the grounded thinker in a world of reactionaries. And every time you choose clarity over comfort, every time you pause instead of react, every time you choose to ask instead of assume, you push back against the tide. Because collective stupidity only wins when good minds go quiet. But now you know, now you see, and once you awaken, you can't go back. So let the others sleepwalk through slogans and screens. Let them trade their freedom for validation, but not you. You're awake now, and your mind is yours again. So go use it. Think boldly. Ask better questions. Be the one who remembers. Because in the end, the most powerful revolution isn't loud. It's not angry. It's not even public. It's personal. It's the quiet moment when one person chooses to think. In a world that doesn't. Let that person be you.